Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. George Bernard Shaw has described the play as disgusting to modern sensibilities. However, I think that it could go either way depending on how the directors themselves interpret it and how it is presented to the audience. The play starts off with a man called Petruchio traveling to Padua to marry a fierce, independent, and wealthy girl called Katharina. The storyline then follows the two characters as Petruchio attempts to tame Katharina into a more acceptable wife as of the 16th century, which is when the play was originally written. Methods of Petruchio's taming include but are not limited to starvation and sleep deprivation. So can their relationship be described as simply a case of violent domestic abuse, or can it be looked at from a comedic point of view? Some of the lines like this one said by Petruchio in Act 2 Scene 1 of the play can be looked at from a different angles depending on the tonage of which it is said in. Women are made to bear and so are you. For one, it can be delivered as plain and matter of fact, which can make it seem like a general expectation of all women of the 16th century, or it can be said with slight lift of voice, which would then make it sound like less serious in general and more like martial arrogance. Meanwhile, Kate's lines are often more metaphoric, consisting of frequent comparisons to nature, which might give the impression that women in the 16th century were expected to be similar to nature in terms of delicacy. If I be waspish, let's beware my sting. An example in Act 2 Scene 1, line 206. It can be seen as her saying this as a retort to Petruchio, which for this matter the line will be then said in a stern voice, or it can be said lightly, which may seem like she is simply arguing for her own entertainment, which isn't really that far from her usual personality as you'll see later on. There are other parts of the play, such as Petruchio's soliloquy in Act 4 Scene 1, that may indeed be seen as contradictory to modern sensibilities, though if critiqued in a different era, may seem perfectly fine if not desirable, even. Thus have I politically begun my reign. Namely, when this part of the play was first written, it would have been deemed perfectly fine, whereas modern-day views might describe it as over-the-top or overly ambitious. But would it be taken that seriously as to becoming disgusting? I think it's a matter of personal opinion when it comes down to whether a line should be thought of simply a deeper part of a story or just appalling. This quote, as of modern-day views, can be either looked at as an explanation for what really is happening in the story, or just an irrational justification of Petruchio's actions. But when looked at in the 16th century point of view, it can be analyzed to be Petruchio being the all-caring husband thinking of nothing but about Kate's sake, taking extreme measures to perfect her despite ultimately causing himself to lose his face. It could be even seen as the mastermind playing two roles at the same time, that of a powerful person who plans every step of the way, or a person who simply lost his mind to chaos and the worst of all imaginable expectations. On line 179 of the same scene, Petruchio then says that this is a way to kill a wife with kindness. This, in a way, can be seen as a pun, meaning both for Petruchio to slay the shrewish side of Katharina with his plans, and also meaning to flatter her and break her at the same time in a way to ensure that she won't have any means of protest. The method mentioned may seem pretty cruel and should not be used by all means, hence George Bernard Shaw's statement. There are also parts of the play which can be affected by how the scenes, settings, and characters are portrayed in terms of physical appearance and actions. An example is shown in the following quote from Act 1 Scene 2, line 246, when Tranio is seen comparing Kate to Bianca and, yes, praising Bianca. The one as famous for a scolding tongue as the other for beauteous modesty. This quote, if shown with a darker setting and more serious presentation of characters, can be seen as a comparison between the ideal wife of the 16th century as well as the least desired. Later, Bianca is also mentioned to be fair and virtuous by Tranio in Act 2 Scene 1, line 87. If taken seriously, some of the female audience may happen to feel that some unfair expectations have been forced against them, and anything else is inappropriate. Throughout the play, Bianca's modesty, humbleness, obedience, as well as beauty is often hinted in her own lines in addition to what others say. An example is shown here. Bianca constantly uses the word sister in her speech when addressing Katharina, which could ultimately add to the impression of her being warm-hearted and sisterly. She also addresses her suitors as sirs, which contrasts to Kate's language where she uses more negative text to address others. As an example of Katharina's speech, till I can find an occasion of revenge, in Act 2 Scene 1 line 36, whereas Bianca tends to use less forceful words where she uses plead. An example is shown in line 15 of the same scene. I'll plead for you myself that you shall have him. On the other hand, if Tranio's action for the first mentioned line, which is about Kate's scolding tongue, Were say exaggerated instead of being simple and serious statements, it could be then seen as him mocking Katharina in a way or even indirectly flirting with Bianca by praising her. Kate does say in line 29 of Act 2, Scene 1 that she does feel mocked by Bianca's behavior, and her silence flouts me. And after this, she is seen to fly after Bianca, and this may seem to be partial, especially if the said action was to be emphasized on, as Kate's personality, as we know, is not that easily swayed, and she wouldn't really feel bad to be looked down on by others. Therefore, if looked from a comedic point of view, the play might indeed be less of a disgrace to modern day views. And that's for how Petruchio treats Kate, which is actually the main point of the story, as you can say. There are also more than one ways to view the characters, their personalities, and actions. For one, it can be interpreted as Petruchio, who has been portrayed as someone in power and superior over Kate. He can be manipulative and playing Kate as though she's a mere puppet and bending her to his own will, even through disgrace. This line may be a reason which causes people to think that the play is disgusting to modern sensibilities, since it's simply wrong to have someone admit in defeat that the sun is the moon, just to show that they are inferior, despite the time of day being obviously proved as else. However, this can be seen as farce, because in an aside, it is revealed that Petruchio sees this as a game. It can be also seen as a comedic play on the whole, where in the end, two mad brain people are united, as implied by Bianca in Act 3, Scene 2, lines 2, 3, 4. That being mad herself, she is madly mated. But whilst there are some parts of the play which can be referred to as humorous, Katharina's final speech of the play might generate a different opinion among the audience. Some parts like, "Thy Lord, thy King, thy Governor," in Act 5, Scene 5, line 138. And after that, she also addresses a woman's husband to be "Thy Lord, thy life, thy keeper," in Act 5, Scene 2, line 146. She also mentions that it's as her duty, a wife should place her hands below her husband's foot, as seen on line 177 of the same scene. From this, some may argue that the speech is far too long and serious to be of light intentions, and therefore Petruchio has reached his goal to break her to the ultimate obedience, whilst others might say that Kate is either being an extremely good actress, or she too was playing along to a game of the mad brains. To sum up the points, I think the final judgment is up to the audience themselves to decide whether the play is acceptable or not, since everybody has their own point of view on what's meant to be funny and what's not, but the directors also play a huge role of deciding which theme to stick to while choosing the scenery, tone of line delivery, etc.